Hey everybody, welcome. This is our 2 Bits. I'm Jeff.
I am Jash.
And this is our podcast of 2 guys, 1 camera. Basically, we're going to take a concept, an idea, something to talk about, 1 segment, and it's going to be 1 video. So think of like a podcast, but just more in bite-sized bits.
Yeah.
Bite-sized bits, get it? Our 2 Bits? That is that right now on the fly. Anyways, dumb jokes aside. We're going to talk about today some kind of, not new tech, but tech that's kind of showing its head a little bit.
We're getting a lot of buzz lately.
Yeah, and the fact that with the new Project Scarlett being announced, the new PlayStation being announced, we thought that this might actually be a really good way that it's going to incorporate into the new tech and backwards compat. Sorry, our cool displays there. Time out a little too fast right now. But essentially, what's going to happen is, I guess let's just break it down. So there's a new tech out, or not, again, not new tech. It's called Erzgan, but it's an AI algorithm that upscales low image. It's like the same thing you would see on the new NVIDIA 2020 series, like the 2080, the 2070.
The RTXs.
Yeah, they have this new, I think it's called GSL, where they upscale the image to make it better, right? Make it better looking, which is cool and everyone likes. The thing, though, is people are taking assets out of older games, right? It has to be 3D and up, so 64, PS1, and forward. And they're taking the textures and they're upscaling with these AI algorithms. And then they're putting them back in. And some of these games look like brand new, right? Obviously behind us, and we'll probably flashing some images on YouTube, but there is a noticeable difference with this.
Yeah, you can definitely see a lot of more clearer pictures and images and stuff like that. You can actually make out the environment.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, Xbox is transitioning from backup pat on the Xbox One to Project Scarlett. And the thing is, with some of the games already, they're already doing enhancements. So they're doing resolution enhancements, poly upscaling, some texture work in the background. They're doing this. The thing is, the way AI algorithms work is once the heavy lifting is done by the AI program, that algorithm already exists. Well, who is to say it would stop Microsoft from applying these techniques to their new backwards compatible software on Project Scarlett? They have the horsepower. Why couldn't they grab a file, pull all the assets from it, do this processing for you, and then just substitute the file? So like when a file reads from an image, it looks up the this new upres version, and then bada bing, bada boom, right? And so that, like, and this is the whole process that got me thinking. Like, this is totally doable. This is something they can do. The technology is not super hard.
It's already proven to be there.
So most of the work is going to come down to is that team, which seems super passionate and dedicated because they're like super hardworking people and they're getting some kind of magic done as it is on this generation, right? Is I could foresee them taking old games and going, hey, Sony, we got you beat. Because we're taking the old games, we're up-resing them, native up-resing, not like scaling.
I think
right?
artificial, yeah.
Yeah, so the problem is when you do that, though, it looks like really smooth-looking square polygons with crappy textures, okay? That's the problem when you do that. If you've ever seen an emulator and you go up and you change the native resolution to like HD or 1440p, like it looks crisp and clean, but it looks like blocky and dated, right? And the textures look muddy. Well, this solves that texture problem, right? And who's to say that they can't do like, when it's runtime, if this is a media file, we just do like a swap, right? And maybe this is something that they can build in the background while you're playing your game for any future textures, or maybe this is something that they can build a minimum amount first because they know what textures each game's gonna need, and then they start building the rest, or they just, hey, we'll build it all for you first. Give us like an hour. We build all your textures, and now when you play this backwards compatible game, it looks very good, right? So if they could do that, and they could do the upscaling, right? That's a game changer, right? And no one's talking about this, no one's thinking about it, but after reading this article on Kotaku about how people are going through and they're doing this to the older games, and they're manually having to do this, right? I don't understand why you couldn't build an algorithm to find those files, up-res them, and then just swap them in.
Yeah.
Right? Or at the very least, Microsoft themselves, because they only okay a certain number of games. So they whitelist. They don't blacklist. So that means they only support games that they've already given the thumbs up. So they have to go through, test it, and then they say this game's good to go. They could go through themselves, build these texture packs, have it available on their store, and just be like, download the texture pack if you want this game to look better. And I don't see why they'd be breaking any NDA, like any contracts with that, right? Or rights, because it's the original art.
It's just up-res.
Just up-res and put through an algorithm, right? It's like the other ones you would see, like Bilinear, right? Or Nearest Neighbor, or they have some other really cool ones. But the problem is, the other upscalers prior to the AI ones is just they're kind of muddy or they lose detail. This one, even though it's kind of creating detail out of nothing, it recognizes patterns well enough to be able to, like, oh, this is a spiral pattern. And I know that from like just the miles of background, and we're going to be adding it to it, right? So I just don't, I can see Xbox doing this, and I can see they're just backwards compatible games looking really good. Mm-hmm. Also, too, some of the best results aren't the PS1 and 64. It's PS2, Xbox, GameCube, because their textures are detailed enough where there's enough detail already there
that they can pick it up.
Yeah, versus on PS1 and 64, those textures were just trash, mm-hmm. right? So, and Xbox One is part of that good enough generation where they could totally do this and it totally makes sense, right? Yeah. Now, like, our publisher's on board. Do you think they'd be on board, Josh?
Maybe, it depends. Because you gotta see, you gotta think of how they're gonna be able to use this as like a kind of like a moneymaker. Like, where are they gonna profit off of it?
I don't know. I guess that's a good question, right? I would think it'd be kind of the same way they're doing Back Compat now, right? A new version of that game's coming out.
Yeah, like remastered editions. This basically could compete with that.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of the problem. Mm-hmm. If it directly competes with remasters, they might not want to do it. But if they're making a sequel, like when Red Dead 2 came out, guess what? Red Dead 1 was... Xbox is like, oh, we got Red Dead 1, it's Back Compat, you can play it, and like and that got people excited for Red Dead 2, mm-hmm. right? And I think that's what you could do. You can use it as a hype machine. You could use it as a good faith measure, right? Like, say EA's on the outs, like they have been lately, and they're just like, oh, our old EA game, it's Back Compat, it's up-res, play this great game you love, and we're okay with it. So EA gets some good brownie points. I mean, I think there's angles for sure to use it. I don't know if they're going to use it all the time, but I think it's definitely a good angle to use. And then that got me thinking, right? Let's put the pin in there. Okay, before we move on, Josh, I want you to explain a little bit to the audience how AI enhancements, how this neural network kind of logic works. So, like, everyone's like, okay, sure, it's software, it works, but, like, how does the AI work? Like, how practical is this?
The practicality of this AI? Yeah, that's going to be a very tough question to answer. Like, how are you really going to be able to answer that? Because it's mostly like a bunch of test cases. I don't know. There's many ways of being able to do this.
I mean, my first thought about what of it is like, so if you guys don't know how these AI neural networks work, essentially, it's not super complicated. Everyone thinks like, oh my god, it's like a human brain, whatever. Like, these terms are thrown around really widely. But basically what's happening is you have an algorithm, right? And it's checking all these parameters against each other. And then it's slightly tweaking these different parameters. And in these cases, they probably have over 1,000. They probably have like 10,000 parameters. They have
to have a lot just based off of like colors, positioning, just all kinds
like
of...
Yeah, and then what happens is checks. They'll do all these checks, and then they have this automated feature that goes, this is good, this is bad. This is good, this is bad. So for example, in this kind of processing, if I was going to build an AI program for it, what I would do is I would take an image that I already know what it looks like. I would low res it, so I lose detail. I would do all my testing on that, right? Or I would do all my algorithms on that, tweaking the variable every round, and then I would compare it to my original image. And depending on how close it was, it would get more points. And then so what you do is, you do this 10,000 times, and you take the one that has the best points. Then you do another one that's 10,000 times and takes the best points. And you maybe do this, I don't know, 5 times, 10 times, and then you merge the stats of those, and you let that do 10,000 times. And then you do different variants of those mixes, and then you just merge it again. And then you get the next round, and you take a variance of those combinations, you merge it again. And you keep doing that until you have a near perfect, identical remake of that image. And so I wouldn't stop at one image. I'd probably do like, I don't know, different environments, people. I would test different things, but I'm assuming that's how they build these.
Yeah.
So all the heavy lifting for neural networks and AI has already been done. So like, it's not like they're doing anything special like we were saying earlier, right?
You just have to basically like buff out the edges and just make sure it's a little bit perfect in what it is.
Yeah, and in the use case, right? But that core fundamental algorithm is still going to be the same, right?
Yeah.
They're going to have to obviously figure out cleaning and stuff like that. But that being what it is, right? That's cool. If Xbox did something like that, that would already be like a huge jump forward. But what in cases where models look good, but they don't look good enough?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I mean. Like, if you go and get an emulator out there, right, and you up-res it and you up-texture it, it looks good, right?
Ish.
It looks good-ish, right? But the problem is, the model itself normally is still kind of low poly, right? Like, it doesn't look detailed enough. Your textures look detailed now, your world looks clean, but your models still look kind of, like, weak. They still look like low poly models, because they probably are.
Yeah, and
right?
They really stand out a lot because you can tell the difference. You can tell it's a very drastic difference.
Yeah, yeah, and you start noticing, like, that difference between...
imperfections.
Yeah, right? So, how could you fix this procedurally? Like, how can you fix this with algorithms? Because Microsoft's going to go through and clean all this stuff up. They're just not going to do it. They're going to have to build algorithms and then apply the algorithms and see which ones are good and then tweak it from there. That's what they'll do. What if they use tessellation on these new textures that they just up-res with the software? Right? And if you guys don't know, tessellation is building geometry out of a texture, basically using a texture as like a bump map, which basically means it takes what the lows are lows and the highs are highs, and it takes some different variables, and it'll basically create geometry or 3D model, parts of models, like 3D texture out of 2D texture, right? And the cool thing about that is, well, once you have high-res model or high-res textures, those textures could be inadvertently reapplied to make the models better inherently, right? So you just create an algorithm, and obviously we say it's super easy.
Yeah.
And this is where people get paid.
Theoretically,
this is what people get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to do.
It's obviously not as easy as it.
Right, but people at Microsoft, I can totally imagine they have the chops to do this. They build the algorithm that knows, hey, this is a wall, hey, this is ground, hey, this is a character, hey, this is this. And then based on those textures, it'll know what variables to push and which ones not to push. So now you're getting more geometry. So now you have high-res world. Now you have high-res textures. I'm sorry, not high-res world. High-scaled world, so upscale, right? You can apply all the background stuff. You have high-res textures because of the software. And now you're doing tessellation on top of them. And I know this new system is going to be pushing like, what, 10 terabits? No, it's not terabits.
Teraflop.
Teraflops, thank you. 10 teraflops. Like, this one's already doing 6, Xbox One.
Yeah.
10 teraflops a second?
They're going to 10.
12?
12, exactly.
Right? Like, they're going to put, like,
They're basically doubling the
There's
power.
no way they couldn't do that, do it at 4K, and it probably still run at 60. Like, they could fix the frame rates, and they could basically remaster these games with a few algorithms and some smart programming.
They can basically remaster a bunch.
A bunch. Right now, I think they have backwards compat is like 600 games. I think from the 360 and PS1 when I just checked today. 600 games that they basically will remaster by using some algorithms and testing some test cases out. I think that would be a game changer.
Yeah, definitely will, especially for people who say they don't like playing older games because they look rough. This is basically a way to be able to help that people out.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of experiencing old games. And here's another business use case we didn't think about earlier. It allows these games to be sold still. Like,
sold again?
You can sell old games. Like, maybe someone wants to bring back a Xbox One game that they made that was popular, but they're like, we don't really make money off of it anymore. Well, if this gets applied to it and it's good enough, now you can probably sell for $15-20 and people will buy it because it feels like a fresh game.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a new reason to buy it. And Xbox would say, hey, you can only do this on Xbox. Game changer. That is a game changer.
At that point, you're not forced to just get an Xbox for that.
Yeah, and I can think, and if you told me that, being a Sony fanboy, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like all consoles, right? I like all systems. But, like, at the end of the day, like, between Nintendo and Sony, like, they kind of have my youth, my, you know, growing
Nostalgia.
up. Nostalgia, thank you. Growing up. So, like, they hold a special place in my heart. But if Microsoft did something like this, man, like, I don't know. Like, it makes me question, it makes me rethink about, like, Should I get one? Only so I can play my favorite games
Up-res.
the best way you could possibly play them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, it doesn't have to stop at Microsoft. Just Microsoft has the resources, they have the will to do this, and they've already had the track record proven they can do things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So they could totally do it. It could totally work, and I think it would be probably pretty good, right? But they could do this on emulators. There's nothing stopping people from building a PS1 emulator or PS2 emulator. Well, they already exist. I think it's PSX. It's like PSXSPE or whatever. Yeah. Like whatever. They could build this into those emulators. Like they could go back. They can add these modifications to hunt through the files. The thing is, it just takes time and effort.
Yeah.
Right.
We gotta have somebody actually be able to do it.
And now we have the horsepower, so we could make these games look amazing. It's just, is someone going to do it? Do they have the motivation to do it? Do we have the community? Do we have the talent? Microsoft does. And Microsoft has a reason to do it because they want to be the best. They want to take... It's no joke that Microsoft, in terms of home consoles, kind of lost this generation, right? And I don't mean to rub in their face or talk trash. It is what it is, right? Like, their numbers are half of what Sony makes. Like, their only real market is America, right? They don't have markets outside of the U.S. anymore, or at least not really strong ones. So this could put them on the map. Right, this could make an initiative, and I know Microsoft's trying really hard to really be a leader in the market, and they're trying to, right the wrongs they did this generation.
They're really trying to come back.
And dude, that's a game changer, and no one's talking about it. No one's talking about this. But you want to know something? If someone told me day one both consoles cost the same, both consoles generally look the same, but one console take, I don't know, 400, 300, 200. Let's just say they're going to start off with not even a large number. 200 of your favorite games are going to be basically remastered with their backwards compatibility.
That's a big feature over the
right?
other one.
And keep in mind, that's not even counting them trying to up-res or backwards compat Xbox One games. Right? We're only thinking 360 and Xbox because that's what we're accustomed to now. But what if they took the games of this gen
and up-res them?
And they up-res them for next gen, right? And they applied some of these features, right? Because don't get me wrong, there's definitely a game you've seen on PC this gen where, or even on some consoles, right, where it's higher scale, but the textures look like trash.
Yeah.
This could fix that problem. Actually, this would make this probably amazing because those textures are already pretty high res in comparison to the way older ones. And they could probably even
make it even better because they have more detail.
Yeah, right. And then texturation is already kind of built into these engines automatically, so with some slight tweaking, they could probably make that better too. So like, this just seems like a no-brainer. And yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes money. Yes, it takes energy.
But it's just the final result, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I can't, I'm kind of speechless because if it were to happen, it's like an alley-oop. And I don't think anyone else is doing it. So, why not them?
Yeah.
So, but I think that's going to pretty much end it for this segment. If you guys liked it, do the whole jazz. Give us comments down below if you liked what we're talking about.
Let us know what are your thoughts on this topic as well.
Yeah, please let us know what's going on. Like, if you guys think that's even a possibility, if, can Microsoft do this? Do they have the resources?
Is that something you would invest into?
Yeah, is this a pipe dream? Do you think, this is way out of the sky? I'll tell you right now, the texture up-resing, totally doable. There's no reason they can't do it. I think the hardest problem would be on older games, identifying which media formats, which files, is it a JPEG, a PNG, a TIFF, which one of those files on the game is a texture and which ones aren't. Most of them should be texture, but basically identifying which ones are texture and how the texture. That'd be the hardest part. But everything else is super easy. People are doing it right now.
Easy in the sense that it's already been made.
Yeah, it's that part's a no-brainer, and I don't see why they wouldn't do that. Now the tessellation thing, that's taken to another level, but I think Microsoft's smart guy. People there are smart. They can take care of this, right?
They definitely
We're trying to end the video. We keep going on. We think it's a really exciting subject. Obviously, if you guys do too, again, let us know in the comments, like Josh said.
Yep.
This has been two guys, one camera.
One camera.
And it's just like I said, podcast topics in bite-sized form. And that's pretty much about it. All right, guys.
See you later.
We'll catch you later. Thanks for watching our video. Hit that like button if you liked it, hit the subscribe if you want more content, and hit that bell icon if you want updates about what we are doing. Also, follow us on other social media platforms at R2Bits for different and unique content. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.